windshield spiderwebbing cracking, I see Rob coming out doing basically, backflip with a gainer. He is got to be 20 feet in the air. Even in the midst of all that, I'm watching my team function as designed, right? This beautiful, well-oiled machine, right?
You're a seasoned Special Forces operator, a military leader with over 20 years of service at the very edge of U.S. national defense.
Excellence, and greatness is bread and butter. It's what's expected every day. It's the bare minimum. It's always striving, always hungry, always pushing. And I think that just kind of built a natural resiliency because, you don't win every game. Sometimes you lose. And I don't care how good you are. My youngest daughter battled leukemia twice. My little 5-year-old girl looks at me and says, "Daddy, am I gonna die?" At one point it got so bad she was on life support. But my wife, every single day, advocating for Jasmine. Okay, you can't walk today, Jasmine. You're doing something. You're not gonna lay here and feel sorry for yourself. A friend has to love you and accept you as you are. A teammate has a duty and a responsibility to make the team better. And he can only do that by striving to be the best version of himself and pushing you to be the best version of yourself.
In your experience, is there someone that best embodied what a strong link is and what attributes did they have?
We can uplift each other. What we can't do is cry. Ain't no damn crying, you hear me?
It's amazing to have you here, supporting together at this point on our journey. We're working every day to strengthen ourselves so we can strengthen you, the strong links, as you continue to lift others and show up at your best for those who matter most. It would help us more than you know. Please hit that subscribe button. It'll only take a second, it's free, and it allows us to keep building this together so that we can keep showing up for you. Thank you. Brian, you're a seasoned Special Forces operator, a military leader with over 20 years of service at the very edge of U.S. national defense. You've operated across multiple elite units, the 75th Ranger Regiment, multiple Special Forces groups, and Joint Special Operations Command, where you led and executed missions in some of the world's most complex and unforgiving environments. From combat operations and hostage rescue to high-value targeting and strategic advising. You've also played a pivotal role mentoring the next generation of operators, supporting transition for Special Forces members, and translating military leadership into real-world impact. Today, you continue to serve that community as president of the Ranger Association, advancing the legacy, support, and connection between past, present, and future Rangers. Your accolades, including 2 Bronze Stars, the Combat Infantryman Badge, the Ranger Tab, and the Special Forces Tab, really reflect a career built on grit, sacrifice, and service to others. It's a privilege and an honor to have someone of your earned wisdom and service here today. You are without a question a strong link, and I'm deeply grateful to have you on this podcast. To begin, I'd like to ask, how would you describe the person sitting here today?
Wow, that was a great intro. Blessed. Or, as I like to joke with my brother, who's also Special Forces, I'm just barely smart enough to know how lucky I am.
Okay, I love that. That's really great. Brian, this is going to be fantastic. Yeah. Welcome. Honestly, it's so great to have you here, and our early conversations have sparked such an interest. This topic and concept of the strong link, which I've been sharing with you, I can tell it resonates with you, with your story, and I can't wait to pull some of those lessons that you've earned earnestly over the past few decades. So with all the speakers, I always like to start just really understanding, when did you know it was going to be the Army, Special Forces, even the non-commissioned route, or the enlisted route? What was that moment for you?
I think so. My brother had gone into the service before me, a couple years ahead of me. He's I guess 5 or 6 years older than me, and I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do, but I think about the time I got to be out of high school a couple years, I was working at a job. It was in the film entertainment industry. All the writers went on strike. And it just kind of crystallized that I wasn't really going anywhere. And I knew that my brother had loved his time in Special Forces as a Green Beret.
So it was Special Forces that he was in.
He was in, yeah, my brother
Right.
was in, yeah.
Right.
So I think, after I'd been out a couple years, it was like, you know what? That sounds incredibly fulfilling. Of course, when
Yeah.
you're young, there's the adventure and the excitement of it all. So,
Right. How many years apart was it between you and your brother?
4. I'm not doing the math in my head. I'm just
Sure.
kind of remembering and estimating. I think it was about 4 years apart from
4
the time
years.
that he went in.
Right.
I was still in high school, and then I worked for a couple years after high school, so
Okay.
about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, and so you worked about 4 or 5 years after high school. So this would have put early 20s, let's say.
No. I 4 or 5 years after he went in, it was just a couple years after high school for me. 2
Okay.
years after high school.
Okay, sounds good. So about 20, let's say? Okay. You mentioned 4 years for him, Special Forces. So does that mean he applied straight to Special Forces?
So it was set up differently when he went in. You could go right off the street and go and apply to go to the Special Forces qualification course. Years later, when I was thinking about joining, that was no longer an option. So a couple things had happened. The earliest iteration of SOCOM was coming into being. They were Special Forces had just changed from being an additional skill identifier to being its own MOS. And so they weren't allowing people to come in right off the street. You had to have 4 years time in service. So you had to have at least 4 years somewhere in the Army, and you had to be at least a sergeant before you could apply to go to Special Forces when I came in. So my first best option into the Special Operations community was go straight into the Ranger Battalion.
Ranger Battalion, right. Okay, fair enough. How were those early conversations with your brother when you said, maybe I'll look at the U.S. Army and Special Forces? What was that like?
I can't be too condescending because,
Sure.
of course, later I do go Special Forces myself.
Right.
But I used to tease him, those who can't do, Rangers, teach.
Oh, okay.
SF, so the SF mission is a little bit different than the Ranger mission.
Right. We're going to get into that. That's good. A little bit of sibling rivalry.
Yeah, exactly.
Following you in. That's amazing. So for those that aren't familiar, right, who are the Rangers? What's the difference between earning the tab, serving as in a Ranger unit, and if you can also share, how does Ranger School play a role in shaping leadership within the Army?
Okay, so unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
So Rangers, there are the Ranger battalions, okay? So I went in right off the street, basic training, advanced individual training, airborne school, into RIP, the Ranger Indoctrination Program. Very tough course designed to weed out all those who can't make it in the Ranger Battalion. So then I go into the Ranger Battalion. Ranger Battalion's job is very, direct action oriented. Like I say, they go that way, kill people and break things.
And I should, just to frame it, right from the get-go from your application, you're identifying you want to get into Rangers. Right. From the get-go.
So I was able to sign, my enlistment contract said that I was going to in the Rangers. As long as, so you have to pass all these gates, right? You got to pass your basic training, you got to pass your advanced individual training, you got to pass airborne school, you got to pass RIP. And if I make it through all these gates, then I will wind up in a Ranger Battalion. That's the intent of my contract.
Right.
So yeah, I knew from the beginning where I was headed, to the 2nd Ranger Battalion.
Okay. So a member who gets through the Ranger School gets a Ranger tab, but that member can come from multiple sources in the Army.
Right. So, and that's one of the things that in the Ranger Battalions we used to say, scroll is a way of life, tab is just a school.
Right, and scroll at the members.
So scroll is the unit patch. If you're in the Ranger Battalion,
Right.
your unit patch is a scroll. Once you go, so I was a very young Ranger. As soon as you get there, you put on the unit patch. So I put the scroll on right away. It wasn't until after I graduated Ranger School that I was able to put the Ranger tab on my shoulder as well as the scroll.
Right.
But like you said, everywhere out there in the majority of people who go to Ranger School itself are not coming from the Ranger Regiment.
Right.
The majority of people, it's kind of junior to mid-grade officers and a lot of mid-level NCOs. The vast majority of whom are not coming from the Ranger Battalions.
Is it fair to say then the Ranger School plays one of the premier leadership programs for up-and-coming leaders within the U.S.
Yeah,
Army.
absolutely. I mean, it's a big differentiator for a lieutenant. Even if this, lieutenant or captain never gets a chance to serve in the Ranger Regiment, and the officers, they do it differently. A lot of it depends on your year group. There has to be an opening at battalion for you to move into. Great guys, they just never have the opportunity to serve in the Ranger Regiment.
Okay.
But if they do get a chance to go to Ranger School and they pass, it gives them a significant bump, a significant leg up for the rest of their career when it comes time for annual evaluations, when it comes time for promotions.
Right.
It's a big differentiator.
Just out of curiosity, is everyone who puts their name in for Ranger School, do they put their name in, or can they get selected and voluntold, for example, that you're going to Ranger School?
Nobody gets volunteered. Very competitive. People
Very
are
competitive.
fighting for positions.
Right.
So, even in the Ranger Battalion, where nearly everybody goes, right? So I went as a very young enlisted person, but in the rest of the Army, very competitive. I mean, you might stand in line for years to get a chance to go to Ranger School.
Right. So if I take it a step back, because you knew you wanted to get into Rangers before you joined the Army. Like, that was the path that you selected right from day one. So you knew it was Special Forces. You knew that there's selections along route. You know there's a high standard to be met, physical fitness, mental fortitude, and so on. What was going through your mind? What did you know about selection, getting ready for it? Was there any part of that right from day one? Or was it you're just going to keep doing the best you can to meet the standards that come your way?
Yeah, so I knew very little about it. You would think with a brother who was in the special operations community in front of me that I'd know more, but there's really a big difference between the unit, between the Ranger Regiment and the Special Forces Regiment. Different jobs, and he'd never been in the infantry. He'd never been, in the Rangers.
Okay.
He went straight into SF.
Straight Green Beret.
Straight being a Green Beret, which you could only do in the late 70s.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't have much of a roadmap. It was just, you've already used one of my favorite words I like to use is grit.
Right.
I knew that I wasn't going to quit,
Right.
and I was going to make it.
So 20 years old, you have confidence in yourself. And just looking at your childhood and coming up, what gave you that confidence? That you knew that you were facing this, and you didn't need to know the details, but you're going to push through. Where did that come from?
I hate to be cliche, but we were born very, very poor, dirt poor. And back then, be all you can be. The Army was a great path out, okay? And back then, when we were kids, there was like zero trash talk. Sportsmanship was, built into everything that we did. So I'm a kid, and I'm scrappy, and I'm playing sports, and striving, always hungry, always pushing. And I think that just kind of built a natural resiliency, because you don't win every game. Sometimes you lose.
Right.
Right. And I don't care how good you are.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Interesting. So it was really part of the child upbringing. This is a natural thought for you. Like, you're just going to get through it. You're going to do the best you can. Okay. Fantastic. So walk us through your path. Joining the Army, coming up through the artillery trade, the skills you built, and what that first day was like arriving at a Ranger battalion as a qualified Ranger. Just that journey itself.
Wow. Okay. So it's actually several months. Come in. I was, as I was told later, I didn't know this when I signed up for it, but they used to send some of the guys that were interested, that were already in the Ranger battalion, they would send them down to Fort Sill to become trained as forward observers, and they'd come back and they'd be an FO in the Ranger battalion.
For those that don't know, forward observer, that role?
Calling in strikes, whether that's airstrikes, naval gunfire bombardments, cannons, mortars. So you're forward, and you are in control of some very heavy ordnance.
Right. So you're line of sight with the objectives, calling in over the horizon effects, for example.
Exactly.
That's impressive. Okay.
So I go through, go to airborne school, show up at RIP. RIP in the mid 80s was, I'll say intense. Insane might also be a good word.
Sure.
It was, so you had these senior NCOs who were in the 2nd Ranger Battalion, who were on another part of Fort Lewis over in North Fort, and they ran RIP.
Okay.
And so they would get, I don't know how many classes a year, I forget,
Sure.
half dozen maybe. And then you didn't go to Ranger Battalion until they said you were ready to go to Ranger Battalion. And they, I think for good reason, but they guarded that jealously, right? Because
Sure.
as soon as they send you over to Ranger Battalion, you're going to be over there responsible for, covering the 6 of their good buddies. They want to make sure that you're ready to be there. So RIP was, and it wasn't all hazing and harassment. I mean, there was a curriculum, there was a syllabus, but it was really, really tough. It was kind of one of the first shocks to the system, if you will, for me.
Right.
I think the guys, and you got to remember, this is a infantry battalion, an infantry regiment. So I think the guys that were coming out of infantry AIT, infantry basic, maybe it wasn't such a big shock to their system.
A bit more.
It was a bit more of a shock for me. So then I get through RIP, and then I go.
How long is RIP, by the way?
I forget, 4
Roughly.
weeks, 5 weeks, something like that.
And over the 4 or 5 weeks, they're doing physical tests.
Oh yeah, it's very, very intense, very intense physically, very intense. They take away sleep, they take away chow, a lot, like they do at Ranger School. High stress learning environment. They're trying to feed you from the fire hose.
Right.
All tests all the time. So it's mentally, physically, emotionally, very, very challenging.
Marksmanship, I'm assuming, or was
Actually,
that?
no.
Oh, okay.
So
So it's more foundational core character attributes.
Right.
Right.
Good,
Okay.
Yeah. Good catch. So where was I? So I get into the Ranger Battalion. I show up. I'm an E1. I just shut up and do what you're told. Works pretty good.
And you don't have a Ranger tab at this
I don't
point.
have a Ranger
Right.
tab, right? So I'm
Right.
a newbie.
Yeah.
I get there. But I wound up going to Ranger School very quickly. Usually guys can sit waiting on the order of merit list for a year, 18 months.
Okay.
I think I waited about 3 or 4 months, and I had an opportunity where some of the people in front of me, for various reasons, couldn't go.
Sure.
And so I told, if you want the full story, I'll back up a little
please.
bit. So we're out on a field problem, get a net call from the Sergeant Major. He says, hey, weapons platoon, we were doing some mortar fire.
Okay.
I want all the guys in the platoon that have been in Ranger School to meet me at, I forget, whatever road intersection with
Sure.
the platoon sergeant. So we all go over there. Sergeant Major shows up and says, hey, somebody who's supposed to go can't go. Weapons platoon gets the next slot. So here you are stacked in the order of merit list. There was like a dozen of us, and I'm at the end.
Right.
And all these guys were like, hey, I'm having knee surgery next week, or, whatever. And it came down to me, and I was, say, Sergeant Major, I can be ready in 2 hours from right here.
Right.
And he said, that's the answer I wanted. You're going.
Amazing.
So I got in the back of his vehicle,
Yeah.
drove back to battalion, left the field problem early, and,
Yeah.
that was like on a Thursday or a Friday, and on Monday I was heading to Ranger School.
Wow. That's a fast burn.
So
turnaround.
it was a fast, and
Yeah.
I think, if I remember right, technically I was going to sew on E2, but when I went down to Ranger School, I said E1,
Right.
which is
Right.
no rank at all on my collar.
Yeah.
So it was easy to sterilize my uniform.
So, just, no rank showing up to Ranger School, but even, I know it's a short time, but 3 months, even the members that stay at Ranger Battalion, let's say for a year before getting a chance at Ranger School, that's got, what's that experience like, being a untabbed Ranger member waiting to go? I feel like there's got to be a lot of pressure to perform and get
There
ready.
is, but it's every day. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. When you're in the Ranger Battalion, excellence, and greatness is bread and butter. It's what's
Right.
expected every day. It's the bare minimum.
Right.
So there's always a lot of pressure. Everybody, all day, every day. But the guys that wait, it was funny because when you come back from Ranger School, very, very quickly, basically as soon as you get back, they send you to the E5 board.
Okay.
So you get to be a Sergeant E5 very quickly after you get back. So
And that's at the team leader, like getting ready for the team leader.
not
role.
team leader.
It's
Fire
like
team.
Fire team. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
fire team.
Right, like a 2-person team. The
Oh
same
yeah,
number.
4-person team. Right. There's 2 fire
Okay.
teams in a squad.
Okay. So what strikes me is 2 hours, let's call it 48 to 72 hours later, you're getting ready for Ranger School. let's talk attrition rates. Like the RIP program would have had an attrition
Huge
rate.
attrition rate, yeah.
Right. And even Ranger School, what were the attrition rates for both of those?
I'm trying to remember.
Roughly. Sure.
I would say 60% of the people, 70% of the people who showed up at RIP didn't make it.
Okay.
Didn't make it through. Ranger School, because you go. I didn't go to pre-ranger, which is a thing.
Okay, right.
A lot of units have a pre-ranger course that they send guys to.
Right.
So a lot of times when you go to ranger school, if you're coming from, for example, 82nd Airborne Division, you will have been through a pre-ranger course.
Work up, yeah.
Yeah, a couple, 2-3 weeks. They're just making sure. So I would guess the attrition rate at ranger school, 40 or 50% that show up don't make it.
Right. So we're talking, let's call it 50, 60% at RIP. Now, 30, 40% at Ranger School. It's well aware. You didn't have the benefit of the pre-Ranger training, for example, but you had the confidence to know that in 72 hours, you were going to show up in Ranger School and perform. Yeah. So what helped maintain that confidence that you could step up with very short notice?
Great leadership at the Ranger Battalion. So the guys in front of me, my section sergeant, my platoon sergeant, the first sergeant, everybody in the Ranger Battalion is just, always on task, always focused.
Right.
And so one of the things, back up a little bit more, when I first got there, if you are one of the untabbed Rangers, almost everything you do, they somehow manage to tie into Ranger School. It's like, hey, we're all going to go, and you run, you do calisthenics and run every morning. Right. But today it's your day to be in charge, Private Halstead, and I want you to brief us like you would an operations order. So the 5-paragraph operations order. Right. Basically who, what, when, where, and why. But there's a specific way because when you get to Ranger School, everything you do at Ranger School that you get graded on comes out of that operations order. Right. So, my great NCOs that were my leaders were prepping me basically from day one.
Right from day one. Yeah. That's impressive. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there a mandate for the Rangers to be ready to deploy within X number of hours or days?
Back then we had a 2-hour recall.
2-hour recall, right.
Back in the day of beepers, right? When your beeper went off.
Right. So it's really interesting to me because the culture, we know it's a high performance team. But maintaining the readiness for a private to be able to get to Ranger School, be successful within a few hours' notice, really, I feel speaks to everything like you just mentioned, the senior NCOs, the readiness at your level. It's going to come into it later on, but the idea of maintaining the state of readiness versus seeing a drop and then having to work back up to it. I know that's been part of your approach too, so we'll touch on that. But what's interesting is, so you and I have talked about balance. And when we talk about strong links, these critical enablers that work to raise the bar, which certainly sounds very similar to your experience as well, they often, in the interviews we've had with members that sustained this type of high performance, they reach that state sometimes by kind of shutting the mind off and pushing through those type of challenges. But like you and I have discussed, that can lead to these cycles of sacrifice. Lost sleep, health, strained relationships. But even early on at the Ranger Battalion, you leaned on something else. It's something you've called selective focus. How did you develop that ability, and how did it help balance?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of the term multitasking, for example, right? But you can do a multitude of different things, but when you're doing each one, you need to focus on that one. Right. Okay? So how I achieve balance, for a guy who swore he was never going to get married. Right. I wound up actually getting married very early.
How old were you?
I was 21.
21?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I've been married 40 years. 41 coming up this December.
So a year-ish into your U.S. Army service before the Rangers?
No, shortly after I graduated Ranger School.
Okay.
Just a few months after I graduated Ranger School. Right.
We got married. Okay, amazing.
So that is, to me, where I got a lot of my balance. So I knew I didn't have any role models, but I told myself, I am going to be the best husband, and when the time comes, the best father ever.
At 21?
I can be.
Right.
So
Where was that born out of?
I think it was born out of, sorry, Dad. It was born out of not having that myself.
Okay.
Right? And it's pretty easy to perpetuate a cycle.
Right.
So I decided I was going to be the best husband and the best father I could be.
Right.
So that provided some balance. What you were talking about, some of these guys that, turn off their mind.
Right.
And some of them can do it for a long time. All right. So it's not a vicious cycle. It's not a sine wave.
Right.
Like we're used to seeing, but they may have a major mental health episode after turning the mind off for sometimes decades.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I found that balance early. So when I was at work, I would focus on work, and I would be the best ranger I could be. I knew a lot of guys that even though they were sitting on their couch at home, their brain was still at work.
Right. Yeah.
I never did that. When I was home, I was home.
So I find that really interesting because just like you said, there's so many members within the U.S. Army, within the Special Forces, within my experience in aerospace, multiple industries, where we take work home and you're still living it and reliving it over.
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting because you had this purpose very early on to be the best husband you can be, the best father you can be, and that was part of the identity and your personal values and beliefs right from the get-go. And what I find interesting is when you're getting home after a rough day and actively, not passively, but actively making that choice to, you're going to show up in that door and this is now the main focus for you, it seems like it's exercising a muscle to be able to selectively focus, like you say, on what needs to take place at a particular time.
I think you're spot on. It's a very, very deliberate decision.
Right.
Okay, you can't. Some things you can coast through. Some things you have to be very proactive. Mentally and emotionally. It's like, okay, if I've got whether it's a 10-minute commute home or a 30-minute commute home, okay, I'm going to spend that time getting ready to be home, so that when I'm home, I can be that good husband. I can be that good father.
How about your peers? I'm sure there were members that were, shutting it down.
There's some guys that just, couldn't turn it off.
Yeah.
And it becomes problematic. They can't turn it off. They can't sleep well.
Right.
They don't necessarily have major mental or emotional breakdowns, but they have unhealthy relationships.
Right. Coping mechanisms.
I was going to say unhealthy relationships, sometimes with people, sometimes with alcohol.
Right.
So it can be problematic.
Right.
So
that's interesting. Yeah. So on this topic of strong links, we've talked about strong links often think like entrepreneurs or even intrapreneurs when they're within organizations. And they're always looking to solve problems, improve systems, create new capabilities that move the mission forward. And in our previous conversation, you've talked about culture shock, certainly, moving from the artillery role into Rangers, right? But also your background with indirect fire effects and what a JTAC ended up being, so working with aircraft platforms to drive effects on the ground, and how it helped shape this new Halo capability within a battalion. What I'd love to do is, can you walk us through how that came together, but what lessons would you teach strong links that are trying to find solutions to deploy new capabilities?
All right, so help me stay on track. Remind me to tie this into strong links, but I'll walk you through the creation of what back then was the COLT teams, Combat Observation Laser Teams.
Okay.
So back before everybody had a laser target designator on their rifle,
Right.
back in the old days, it was a AMPAQ-1. It was this big laser target designator. It's about as big, it's a big shoebox,
Okay.
which your cowboy boots would come in, sort of thing.
Sure.
big and heavy, but it was sort of revolutionary. So this one thing that I remember we did, so you go to Halo school. Halo is high altitude, low opening. It's a means of infiltration. So basically, when you think parachuting, most people think World War II, right? Thousands of parachutes in the sky.
Static jumps, right.
Okay, that's static line jump. But for the insertion of a small team in a very quiet manner, you would use Halo.
Okay.
So basically, you exit the aircraft at airline altitude, you free fall to where you want to be, you deploy your chute, and the goal that we used to strive for when I was on a Halo team is you want to be able to get everybody to land within a football field. Why?
Okay.
Because pretty much every city in the world has at least one soccer stadium.
Oh, okay.
And
There we go.
the rest of the world, if there's open space, there's open space. You can land anywhere. But
Right.
that way, if your goal and you train to the standard of everybody lands on a soccer field, then you could pretty much go anywhere.
And
So these
altitude-wise, jumping off roughly?
airline out, so
Okay,
you'd have
airline.
to plug into a. So when I went to Halo Jumpmaster as well.
Okay.
So part of what you do at Halo Jumpmaster is you learn how to coordinate with the phys techs. If you go really, really high, you have to have supplemental oxygen.
Right.
So when you're inside the aircraft, because you have to start on the supplemental oxygen sometime hour before the actual open the back door of the aircraft.
Right.
So you plug in the supplemental oxygen, you work with a phys tech, and then when it actually comes time to exit, everybody has a jump bottle.
Okay.
The bottle goes with you until you get down to altitude.
Right.
Where was it? So cult teams. So the idea is get these teams well forward. And this is during a time, the Cold War. So it could be anywhere. Where there was no, front lines. Anywhere in the world, get a cult team in there. They could lace the target. So this one, it was a training mission. I'm sure I can talk about it. Back, I'm also dating myself, which is
No, it's
no
all
fun.
good.
It's never any fun. So the old F-111.
Right.
They would, they had the capacity because they had such a great lift to weight ratio. They
Right.
could come in and kind of go like this, and right in the middle of that arc, as they were turning and going away, they would release.
Right.
Well, if you're anticipating something traveling, 10, 15 miles, and it's a dumb bomb,
Right.
the chances of success are minimal. So we would halo the Colt team in, they would turn their laser target designator on,
Right.
and then this bomb, as it reached the apogee of its path, would lock on to that.
Yeah.
So we're over here lasing, and now this missile comes at it.
And
Nowadays, the technology is way beyond that, but back in the day, that's how we did
That's
it.
still, it's still incredibly impressive. So we're talking about a 2 to 4 person team? Colt team?
The Colt teams were smaller.
So Halo insertion in, I'm assuming is still taking advantage of night and everything to go in undetected, right? And then infilling, so multiple miles, I'm sure, still undetected. And if it's anything like my experience with reconnaissance, it's all heavy gear on your back, right? Getting in, getting the line of sight with the objective, being able to have the communication with the aircraft platform, they come in, probably nighttime as well, getting into an arc, launching a dumb bomb, which is not being guided at this point, and it's approximation. And after it pivots over the apex, identifies the laser you're shooting out, which then allows it to further get accurate and then hit the target. I mean, the amount of critical points of failure on that is quite significant. So how did that all come together to launch that?
I'd be lying if I said I knew every bit of it, but there was a guy, myself and Captain Cannon, we wound up writing the SOP for the 2nd Ranger Battalion's initial Colt teams.
Okay.
And part of it was, so nowadays there in the Army, there's this thing called a JTAC, Joint Tactical Air Controller.
Right.
I was basically the first JTAC before JTAC was cool, before there was an acronym. So the Ranger Battalion sent me to the Naval Gunfire Spotter course on both coasts. So I went to both of them, right?
Okay.
They sent me down to can't remember if it was, I think it was Nellis Air Force Base for the enlisted forward air controller. So I learned how to control aircraft.
Okay.
A part of my Army job already is mortars and cannons and howitzers.
Right.
So I'm learning how to control all of the big heavy ordnance that the DoD can bring to bear.
Right. Right.
And the big one, the most complicated one, although the Navy is fun when they miss, is the Air Force, because the planes are coming in. And if something goes wrong, you oftentimes will have the opportunity to resurface or attack the target. So you have to know how to talk to them, guide them in. So
There's weather effects. There's so much to consider for that. Okay. So to bring it back to the strong links. So developing this capability, I did it myself at the aerospace manufacturing businesses too. They see a problem, they want to bring together different stakeholders, they see a potential solution. What's some of the advice or lessons you took from that implementation that could help?
So one of the things that at this point in my career, I think I'm just beginning to grasp it, but it kind of came one of the things I used to say all the time when I get a new team leader or team sergeant or something like that. I say, there ain't a one of us that's as good as all of us. So if you have a better idea, there's no pride in ownership. Okay, we're all on this team together. So when we're developing this cult team, we are in large part working from scratch. Okay, what's working? So lots of iterations, lots of training. What works? What doesn't work?
If I would take a step, was there a problem you were looking to solve?
It was again way back before we had all these satellite GPS guided munitions. It was, how do you get precision effects on a target?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And at the time, it was a cult team.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Sounds good. So when we build on, there's a few other points from this time at the Ranger Battalion that I wanted to pull on as well. You know, in our earlier conversation, you mentioned a deployment to Honduras, but it seemed to be a key moment. You've talked about mentorship, but sponsorship, which kind of helped fast track your path and your career. There's an important lesson here about the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. Can you walk us through what happened, your perception of it? And I'd like the listeners to walk away with that distinction, why it matters.
Yeah, so what you refer to as the strongest link, the Army refers to as informal leaders.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So what happened in Honduras was we were down there, sort of semi-permissive, things were tense.
Right.
And like I said, when you're in the Ranger Battalion, excellence is expected. So I'm mission focused. I'm doing the best I can do. I'm always striving. And apparently I had done something that my NCOs thought was exceptional, but then I blew it within a day or two. I can't remember exactly. We're back out of that tense situation.
Right.
And I got really mad. I got really pissed off at something. And I just remember Sergeant Fulton, Sergeant Clutter, they pulled me to the side and they said, hey, look, this is not an ass chewing, okay? But people follow you. We're the chain of command, everybody does what we say. We're not chastising you, we're not jealous of you, but you have to realize that people follow you. You're one of those informal leaders.
Right.
And we're telling you this because we want you to become the best leader that you have the potential to become. And I remember thinking at that point, it's like, I got it.
And they were referring to that kind of blow up.
Yeah, when I lost my cool, they're saying, you just can't do that, man.
Right.
People are following you, they're following your example.
Right.
And I remember after that, it was like leadership is a all the time sort of thing, which I always tie into, I go back to when I did finally become a father. I was very cognizant that every single thing I said and did, those little parrots are watching, okay?
Right.
Every single time.
All the time.
So all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And your performance during that operation seemed to capture attention with other enablers.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how it happened.
Sure.
So mentorship, right? As we talked about, mentorship is those two guys pulling me to the side and saying, "Hey, look, you have more potential, perhaps than even you realize.
Right.
You need to, think about that." And then sponsorship, and I think this happened. I have no way to prove it.
Of course.
I think what happened was because of what the mission was and how well me and my team had done. Somebody let the powers that be much further up the food chain know.
Right.
Hey, this guy's doing great stuff. He should be given every opportunity to advance quickly, be given, and even later in my career, there's a formal annual evaluation.
Okay.
And one of the blocks always is, should be given additional duties and responsibilities for which he can excel. So they're always trying to, if you're doing great, they want you to keep doing great, and then you get a view more to do great with.
Right. Okay. So someone was in a room, reinforced by your performance, and took an action to open a door, in essence. So that's the sponsorship attribute that I think it's really interesting, and I find missing in a lot of mentorship discussions. And for mentors to truly realize that sponsorship is a part of mentorship and to look for those opportunities.
I think a lot of it comes natural in the military because there are, so you go to PLDC and ANOC or BNOC and then ANOC, there's these schools for sergeants as you progressively become a more senior sergeant.
Right.
There's these schools that they send you to, and one of the things they're constantly drilling into you is you should be building your replacement.
Right.
Right. That's that mentorship, and because it is such a common refrain, I think most good NCOs are also, they sponsor their guys.
Right.
They are more than happy to say to whoever at the powers to be, "Hey, Colonel,
Right.
I'm Staff Sergeant Halstead, but I'm here to tell you, Sergeant Perez did great.
Right.
Sergeant Perez is a great guy, and if there's any opportunities for him, he ought to be at the top of your list."
Right. We're absolutely going to get into your time with the Green Berets, leading entrepreneurship with Fortune 500 companies and the Ranger Association. There's so much to unpack there. I've always had this deep respect for that post-Vietnam long-range reconnaissance patrolman history. I've talked to you about the Recondo books. These shaped my Army career. All my good friends all got copies, right? Like, this was highly impressionable to me. And can you walk us through how that legacy evolved into the modern Ranger community you joined, and how there was a 6 to 7 year constraint that kind of led you to look at the Green Berets?
Okay, so that's really two separate issues. So we'll talk about my time in the Ranger Battalion. Back then, General Abrams was the Chief of Staff of the Army. And he, as I understand it, not that the 4-star was talking to E5 Halstead, but he was a little hesitant to create the Ranger battalions.
Okay. This is post-Vietnam.
Post-Vietnam.
Right.
And he is, he's saying, no, if these guys are so great, they should be out there, spreading their goodness around the Army. But I think it's a compromise. He said, okay, great. But the Abrams Charter said 6 years and out. So after 6 years in the Ranger Battalion, you were supposed to go someplace else. And, there's a ton of places you could go if you're an infantryman. So I was not an infantryman. I had pretty much no good options. And I couldn't go to the 82nd Airborne and still be, I would have wound up in the artillery division.
Right.
So at that point, I'm getting 6 years. I decide that I'm going to go SF. I'm going to go and be a Green Beret.
Okay.
So that was sort of the route that I took.
Okay.
To take a step back, the modern Ranger Association. So I'm the president of the United States Army Ranger Association. It is the oldest and largest Ranger Alumni Association in the world.
Right.
And we just had our 50th birthday as an organization. And it's kind of funny because if you go back to the inception of USARA, United States Army Ranger Association, there was at the time the World War II Rangers.
Right.
You know, Point the Hawk.
Right.
You know, super famous, incredible story of what the Ranger battalions did in the Second World War. And these long-range reconnaissance units that were coming out of Vietnam. And so one of the guys who was, I think he was a major, maybe a lieutenant colonel coming out of Vietnam, talked to the board of directors of the World War II Ranger Association. Said, hey guys, come here, we want to talk to you. So we got, and then, so now he's saying, look, there should just be one Ranger Association. Right? We don't want to have a World War II Ranger Association in Vietnam.
Right.
And so, as the story goes, I wasn't in the room.
Sure.
They're, it's, you know, it's kind of going okay, but then there starts to be some grumbling in the back. And what it boiled down to was some of these World War II Rangers, they said something along the lines of, hey, look, man, we defeated the Nazis. We freed Europe. We scaled, you know, the cliffs of Point the Hawk. And you guys can't even take on a bunch of pissants in black pajamas.
Right. Wow.
Wow. Right?
Yeah.
So still that to, you imagine telling that to a Vietnam Ranger nowadays. So there was a significant misunderstanding.
Of course.
Well, what happened was, again, one in the room, a guy named Staff Sergeant Whitey,
Okay.
who apparently made E6 3 times. So
Okay. Right.
it's a joke.
Right.
The only way to make E6 3 times is to be 7 twice and get fired back. So
Right.
he was in the room. He was, again, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam Ranger. And he was able to break through to the World War II Rangers. He's like, no, you guys don't get it. You know, you guys know me, all right? I'm one of you. I'm here to tell you these guys are us too, all right? And so it's kind of Sergeant Whitey saved the day.
Right.
But it's interesting that even, you know, so well, we get on, you know, 80-some years to the World War II Rangers, 50 years for USARA. You know, 50 years ago when they wrote the mission statement, they knew how important camaraderie was. So it's part of our mission statement is that, you know, we're here as USARA to help foster camaraderie with all Rangers, past, present, and future.
Right. It's interesting because that almost also sounds like a sponsorship activity, someone going to back. And now a whole new legacy kicked off for 50 years, right? That's impressive. When it comes to selection, right? You faced, this is now of course going into SFAS and the Q course. This is now a new chapter in your life. You faced some of the toughest selections in the military, from RIP, the Range Indoctrination Program, Special Forces Assessment School, and Q course. What were those experiences like, and how did they differ? And how did you get through them? Because it's multiple gates here we're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you are constantly striving, you be all you can be. There's always a challenge, and if you can pass it, you know, then whole new opportunities open up. So you're like you said, you know, I go to RIP. I'm in the Ranger Battalion. I go to Ranger School. I even very briefly was a platoon sergeant in the 2nd Ranger Battalion. I don't think we had a chance to cover this one, but new sergeant major comes in and he pulls me aside and says, hey, Sergeant Halstead, I mean, known you for a long time, big fan, but this is the 2nd Battalion, 75th Infantry Regiment, and you ain't infantry, and you're not going to be a platoon sergeant in my battalion. I was like, dang. I was like, I get it, you know, no hard feelings. I'm honored to have had the chance to be a platoon sergeant for a few months. So you keep going through these gates, and you know, this is where I talk about grit. You know, a lot of times when I'm public speaking, I will talk about grit, right? That ability to maintain a mission focus, right? This is where I'm going. Things get in my way: physical pain, sleep, hunger, you know, whatever, you know, mental, emotional stress. I got it. You know, I'm cognizant of all those things. I'm not ignoring those things, but right now they're just not as important.
Right. So we talked about RIP, character-focused, certainly Ranger School, leadership-focused.
The Army's premier leadership school.
Right. SFAS and Q course.
So SFAS, I went to one of the very early classes. In fact, it was so early, So SFAS is a fairly new thing. I went through in '89, I guess, right? '89. So I was like the second or third class. And what it was Green Berets who had been on teams, been all over the world. You wind up going to the John F. Kennedy, United States Army, John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School. So all these schools in the special operations community are run out of this building, right? So guys that have been on A teams, been all over the world, now they are tasked to go and conduct an assessment and selection. There are some people that want to come and they want to be a Green Beret, and it's up to you, this group of NCOs out there on the Camp McCall, the far side of Fort Bragg, to put them through and see if they have what you think it takes, and then if they pass assessment selection, we'll send them into the Q course. So SFAS, I think, was 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. The Q course is much longer. So SFAS, and it was very, very interesting because what they would do is basically they would read what the task of the day was, right? Just as an example, I want you to assemble that Jeep, and you then have to move it 5 miles. Okay, so and you got a small team. Well, there's only 3 tires. Okay, so well, we're gonna use a log as a lever, turn it into a rickshaw. How are we gonna do this? And after they read that thing, they're just the whole day, because you can imagine pushing a Jeep. If you don't do it right, I mean, it is like a 2-ton square rock through foot deep sand. They're just back there taking notes. Do you communicate well? One of the things I didn't find out till later, a good friend of mine was actually one of the senior officers out there at selection. And he said they're looking for the ability, I forget the term he used, I use acquiesce. Right. So, hey, this is how we're going to do it. This is what and if the guy next to you has a better plan, are you such a type A that you can't say, well, dang, that's better. Let's do it his way. Hey, good job, Jimmy. Let's do it your way. It's got to be your way, because that's an indicator that you may not function well on a team. Right. And every place else there's squads and platoons and companies and battalions, but in SF it's a team. Because you have to have that close bond. I mean, I went on deployments to dangerous areas, and there was 8 of us, in country. That was it. There's 8 of us in country.
Right. How was actually we should probably frame this. You described what the Rangers do. What do the Green Berets do, and how are they different for those? Very,
very different. So, like I said earlier, the Rangers were. I can't speak for. I think they are very much the same, though. Sure. Basically, direct action, right? Kill people and break things. Right. They are part of America's premier strike unit. Okay, go in.
Really short notice and drive
short notice. Right. But if speed and violence of action is going to win the day, if you're always ready, you're always ready.
Right.
Whereas that's part of the toolkit that a Green Beret has to have. Have to be an absolute master of going kinetic and lethal.
Right.
Okay. But there's other things too. We do a lot of foreign internal defense. So. You'll go to some far-off place, and your 8-man team will be linked up through the embassy and the host country's Ministry of Defense. You'll be linked up with an 800-man battalion,
right? And
you'll run them through how to function as an infantry battalion.
Right.
What is the battalion commander's roles and responsibilities? So you'll train him on that. What is the battalion staff's roles and responsibilities? You'll train them on their job. What is a company commander's duties and responsibility? So everything from the entire collective tasks of an infantry battalion,
right,
down to the individual task of marksmanship.
Right.
So that was one of the things that we would commonly do is FID.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we talked about Honduras with the Rangers, but your time in Afghanistan was with the Green Berets.
Yeah, I was in 3rd Special Forces Group at the time.
Right, and you were working in some of the most contested areas, building that capability and capacity, right? What was that like?
It was pretty crazy. So we got there in early '02, the first trip for me. It's funny. So we went up to a place called the Konar province, Pesh Valley. Years and years later, a guy wrote a great book called The Hardest Place. A guy, Morgan Wesley, wrote a book called The Hardest Place, talking about the Konar and the Pesh Valley. And that was after we spent a couple years, eliminating bad guys and kind of sorting to help tame the whole area.
Right.
So it really was rough when we first got there.
Yeah.
We get rocketed 2, 3, 4 times a week.
Right.
Every patrol, there was one way in and one way out of the fire base.
Right.
So it was tense.
And did you find the same attributes, the same selective focus, that same resilience? Was it consistent throughout that as well?
Sure. That's kind of part of my personality, part of the way I do things. I'm sure lots of people can successfully do things other ways.
Right.
But in some ways, going to combat was less strenuous than some of the training, because when you're training, man, they take away your sleep, they take away your chow, they put you under these very high stress, it's going to be graded environments. Combat's just the opposite. The Army's like, hey, what do you need to accomplish the mission? You need more bullets.
Push.
Yeah, you need right. So that and a good commander will reinforce success, right? When there's a break in the lines, he wants to reinforce success, keep pushing. That same sort of just stay focused. Okay.
Right. And I'm curious, we've talked about elements from the Ranger Battalion culture that maintain that state of readiness. Overarching question, to maintain a culture of excellence, that was obviously within the Rangers, obviously within the Green Berets, and within training environments and within combat operations. What was it about these cultures that allowed excellence to persist, even in those combat situations, getting rocketed every few days, that type of thing? What would you say from a cultural perspective? What's important to maintain excellence?
So a friend has to love you and accept you as you are.
Right.
A teammate has a duty and a responsibility to make the team better. And he can only do that by striving to be the best version of himself and pushing you to be the best version of yourself.
Right.
So, when you're surrounded by great people, you have a mission, everyone's focused, everybody is supporting, right? It is, it's easier to maintain that high level of excellence because everybody's pushing everybody. Everybody's supporting everybody.
So I must assume that even in those environments, there are points of failure. There are points where someone didn't meet the standard, or maybe collectively that training operation or that operation didn't go as well as it could. But I can imagine there's a lot of pressure and focus on continuous feedback, improvement, rehearsal. And or what do you do with members that just aren't meeting that standard, right?
Yeah, so that's a good one. So in the Ranger Battalion, we have a relief for standard clause, or we had.
Okay.
Basically, we don't have the time to try to motivate somebody who, if you don't want to be here, you're gone. Okay, today.
Wow.
If you can't cut the mustard, and you will be given a chance to retest. You will be given another opportunity. But if you can't cut the mustard, you got to go.
Right.
We do everything we can to remove those weak links.
Right.
And it's part of that culture of excellence. Go someplace else in the Army. Get some, retraining. Go someplace where the pace is slower. You can figure out how to do it, and then maybe you can, reapply to come back maybe.
Right.
But right now, you're not cutting it. You got to go.
Right. That looks like it's critical in terms of maintaining that standard across different environments. Really interesting. So even on that particular topic, bringing it back to this concept of those strong links, those leaders, those critical enablers who step up and raise the bar. In your experience, is there someone that best embodied what a strong link is and what attributes did they have?
Yeah, there's several.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out which one I should talk about. So, talk about two. I'll talk about one professional and one personal.
Perfect.
So, professional. A guy named, retired as Command Sergeant Major Greg Birch.
Okay.
I hope it's okay if I talk about you, Greg. I think he had just made E7, maybe he was still a staff sergeant, when I showed up, and I was the forward observer, and he was the platoon sergeant.
Rangers.
So yeah, this is going way, way back.
Right. Okay.
And this guy was just hard. But, the good kind of hard. He was hard and smart and capable and had very exacting standards, but he wasn't callous, right? You could tell that if you went to him and had an earnest question, Sergeant, I don't understand. He'd stop. He would look at you. You could tell he was talking to you, right? It wasn't some rote thing. He was focused on you. He'd say, okay, Sergeant Halstead, this is what I need you to do. This is kind of whatever, how we do it, why we do it. Do you understand? All right. Expect you to be able to do your job now. So, but he was, and he went on just a fantastic career. About a 15-year gap. I don't see, last time I saw him, I was a young staff sergeant. I think he was a young E7. He went off to another unit. 15 years later, we're way up north, fire base of Sadabad.
And this is when you're
in Afghanistan. I'm a Green Beret.
Right.
And I just come back in from a mission. And the last time he saw me, the Rangers used to have high and tight, what a lot of people think of like the Marine Corps haircut, buzzed on the sides.
Sure.
Right, very short on top. So I would have been, early 20s, all clean cut. I come off this, because of what I was doing, I was basically hiding in the back of a Toyota Corolla. And I had all the turban and everything on. So I get out, I kind of unwrap. I'm heading into the little headquarters area we had. Come around the corner and Sergeant Major Birch, and he looks almost exactly the same as the last time I saw him 15 years ago.
Right.
And I'm kind of stuttering. I'm almost speechless. At this point, he is the Sergeant Major of the Ranger Regiment. That is a prestigious position.
Absolutely.
A lot of astronomically great NCOs start heading up to that pyramid, but only one guy makes it, and that was Sergeant Major Birch.
Right.
Come around the corner and say, Sergeant Major Birch. He looked at me, and it didn't take him, I don't think, a full second. Kind of looks at me. There may have been a half second. He goes, Halstead. Good Lord. I mean, I'm shaggy. I got a full beard. I got long hair. I'm dressed like a local.
Yeah.
15 years. He's a guy who was just, always been super impressed with him.
Right. And he of course, clearly left an impression on you throughout that decade. Yeah. So you mentioned a few qualities there. So when you now lead teams, even in your entrepreneurial world, what do you look for in those strong links, would you say?
Well, what I'm always looking for is, really, to me, it boils down to honesty.
Okay.
And that's kind of twofold. Honesty, can I trust you to do the job when I'm not here to supervise? I have things to do, right? I'll make sure you understand the task, but that's so honest, can you do the job when I'm not going to be here?
Right.
And then the other one is, it's kind of a variation of honesty. Ask me questions. If you don't understand the task, ask me. I'll explain it to you. Because competency, you can learn competency.
Sure.
Okay, whatever, it's like the difference between leadership and management, right?
Right.
You can be taught how to manage certain things. So what I look for are people who are honest and are willing to, ask those questions, making sure. Because if he's going to ask, high degree of probability that he's trying to figure out how he can best accomplish the mission.
Right.
I don't need to stand there and micromanage.
Of course. And what's really interesting about that, in the interviews we've done, certainly the leaders will share the ability to take on those tasks and make sure they are prepared, and they will refer to that as reliability, let's say. But what I find really interesting, and I think this is really born out of those cultures of excellence, to you, that is part of being honest in terms of showing up. And that means it's implied that you're going to prepare and do so, but it's more so attributed to honest and trust, which I really think is interesting because it's far more visceral in terms of being at the core of what a strong link could
It's
be.
a character trait rather than a skills base. It's like, do you have the right character?
And it's interesting because it seems to all come back to character traits versus competency traits, which I really like, really like that approach too. So clearly this shaped your career. And during your time with the 1st Special Forces Group, with the Green Berets, you shaped much of your own path, staying longer as a team leader, right? Yeah. Through many different approaches. You even chose the warrant officer track at some point, and spending nearly a decade in the Special Forces as a team leader, if I remember correctly, and right up to assistant detachment commander as well. How did you make that happen? And the reason I'm asking this question is I'd like to, and I'll prompt this at the end as well, why is it so important for strong links to take control of their own career path, even if it means taking a risk to create an opportunity?
Yeah, I think that's an integral part of being a strong link is trying to take control. A lot of people will just, surf. So usually in the Army, in special operations, there will be 2 breaks when you'll kind of come off the grind, right? When you're in that line unit, you're in a line unit, and you're on that 2-hour recall, or you're on an A team, and you're can deploy anywhere in the world. It's a grind. Right. At some point, usually mid-career, you will have the opportunity to usually go and be an instructor somewhere, right? A ranger instructor, a RIP instructor, a Q course instructor, whatever, right? So it's a little bit of a break. And then later in your career, you will just, by the way the Army is built, you will ascend, matriculate, pick your word. You will be put on staff. You're a senior, very, very senior sergeant. You're no longer out there fighting the battle. You're now up at headquarters supporting the fighting units.
Right.
I never wanted to do that.
And you knew that right from the get-go.
Oh, yeah, I knew. So I made rank very quickly. Not a term I used, but a term that was told to me by a sergeant major.
Right.
Hey, you're being fast-tracked, right? So I made E6 at basically 4 years. I made E7 at 7 years. Most people in the Army, 20 to 24 years time in service, will retire as an E7.
Right, and so E6 and E7, for those that don't know, that's the squad leader, platoon sergeant.
Right, squad leader, platoon sergeant, mid-range sergeants. So I make 7 at 7. And then I'm in Okinawa at the beginning of what is supposed to be a 3-year tour. And this goes to what you were talking about a moment ago about taking charge of your own career. So Okinawa's a 3-year tour. If you like it and your command agrees that you're doing a good job, you could put in a paperwork and get a 4th-year extension. So I did that. Being a little bit cheeky. At the end of getting toward the end of the 4th year, I get another letter from PACOM because we're OPCON to the PACOM commander.
Right.
Says, hey, your time on the island's coming up. Do you want to extend for a year? Sure.
Right.
So I fill out the extension. It comes back approved. Well, I think what had happened was some clerk, up at the Pacific Command was going through and said everybody who was getting ready to, get near the end of their term, push out this letter asking them if they want to do a 4th year. Well, I'd already done a 4th year.
Right.
So anyway, they caught their error. And usually you have 6 months to start packing, putting in your request to go to different unit, whatever you're going to do. Right. I had 45 days. They said, hey, that's really cute. you're leaving this island at the end of your 1-year extension, 4 years to the day max. You got 45 days to get your affairs in order and get off this
45
island.
days, wow.
So yeah, that was a hair on fire drill. But,
Sure, yeah, I can imagine. Amazing.
but that goes back to, so later, I'm on the B team, which is not battalion staff, it's basically company staff.
Okay.
I've done, I'm trying to remember, 5 or 6 years on the A team at this point. I've got, probably 2 years or more detachment command time.
Sure, right.
So the chief warrant officer on an A team is officially slotted as the assistant detachment commander. But a lot of times you can't push enough young captains through the Q course because it's just there's a high attrition rate.
Right.
It's a tough school. It's
Right.
I think it's like 18 months for them. So I've got a couple years of command time. I'm getting to be a fairly senior W-2 at this point. They want me, so I go up and I'm working on company staff. And so again, taking charge of my own destiny.
Right.
We're getting a new battalion commander coming in, okay? Literally, while this guy was a troop in the line, everybody else in the whole battalion was out there standing in formation, marching around, saluting. I didn't go.
Okay.
I took all my stuff out of my wall locker and moved it down to the A team. But I'd gotten with the sergeant prior. I said, "Hey,
Yeah.
I want to be on an A team again. Can I, is it cool? Will you take me?" He's like, "Heck yeah, damn, Chief, man, I'd love to have you on the team. What an asset! Come on." So I'm moving my stuff down there.
Sure.
And then, within a week or two, the new battalion commander, he comes to everyone's team room. So you have these team rooms, right? So you got
Right.
12 guys, well, room for 12 guys. Most teams still don't have 12 guys. You got these rooms, we call them team rooms, and everybody has these huge kind of like walk-in lockers. You got your snow gear, your water gear, your whatever gear. And then there's also, because you wind up being your own staff, right? You got to do, every team has to do its own paperwork and has to, prioritize for its own requisition, its own ammunition, its own vehicle. So, anyways, he comes to the team room, and he's meeting everybody, and he's shaking my hand. He goes, "Yeah, I heard about you, Chief Halstead. I thought you were on the B team." I said, "No, sir. I'm here on this A team."
Okay.
And so.
Interesting. So, do you think he understood and at least appreciated and admired, a little bit that you took that?
So later, it was all quite official because
Sure.
in my position working on the company staff, I approved all the paperwork.
Right. Well,
that's why I approved my own paperwork. So I mean, it was, I want to use the term legal. I had followed the appropriate procedures and moved myself back to that A team.
Right.
And later, as I got to talk, you get to know the battalion commander. You're not close friends, but if you're one of his go-to guys, you will get to spend time with him. And so I kind of explained it to him. I was like, "Think about it, boss.
Right.
Most guys who are my age, because it's hard living, right? If you're a ranger or a Green Beret, 100 pounds on your back, walking for miles. You do massive amounts of running and calisthenics every morning that you're, back at your home base.
Right.
You're falling out of the sky. I've got almost 1,000 parachute operations. So on and on, it's hard on your body. So I was telling him, I said, "Think about it, boss. You got a guy with my experience, but who, is still physically fit enough to be on an A team. Because a lot of guys, once you get old, you blow out a knee.
Absolutely.
So you've got this tremendous asset in that I have all this experience, but I can still hang physically on an A team.
Right.
I think that's more valuable than having me up here pushing papers."
Sure.
And he agreed. So he let me stay.
Oh, it's amazing, and I think it's such an important attribute. We're going to talk about this in a bit, but the number of members we've talked to as a strong link where you can be the face of success and the face of failure as well, trying to get above and beyond and push that bar higher. I find often that cycle of sacrifice can come into play where they're like, "I'm going to put the best efforts in, I'm going to enable the organization," and there's this almost blind trust that the organization will take care of them and align their career path in terms of their interest. But I find the leaders we've interviewed here, there's always this element of, I'm still going to control my destiny. And that's going to be the relationships I endure and engage with, and just take that bit of risk to create an opportunity for myself. Obviously, this played into your entrepreneur career post the military as well. So really interesting. And you just mentioned a few attributes of that experience and the opportunity they had to keep you in that A-team state. When it comes to from selection to deployment, there were moments where you had to make critical decisions under extreme stress. Can you share one of those moments that still sticks in your mind, and how did you execute through that moment under pressure, and what helped to enable that success? What's a moment that kind of comes to mind, would you say?
There's two of them
Okay.
that I think sort of talk about that. The first one was on my first deployment. One of the guys on my team. So because we were so far off in the hinterland, we weren't using Humvees like the guys down at the FOBs. I mean, we were way out at the ragged edge of nowhere. So we're using Toyota Hilux trucks.
Right.
And we're going down this one road headed to Jalalabad, and we get hit with an IED. And it's actually the lead vehicle gets hit. It gets hit. This is how close we were, the way I recall it. I remember my windshield spiderwebbing cracking, then the sound, then the push of the dust.
Wow.
So.
And what vehicle were you in the convoy?
I was number 2.
Number 2, and the first vehicle
First,
got hit.
the first vehicle is the one that got hit.
Right.
And so, windshield, spider webs, sound wave, shock wave, dust wave, and then up out of this huge dust ball that used to be the Hilux in front of us, I see Rob coming out doing basically, backflip with a gainer.
Wow.
He is got to be 20 feet in the air.
Wow.
He survived, but so now we're on this narrow road in this very narrow valley. I have to try to find the person that initiated the detonation.
Right.
We're calling a medevac. We're securing the perimeter. We are making sure that, there's no follow-on attacks. There's a lot of stuff going on simultaneously. And I just remember thinking that as I'm doing all these things, right, working the radio, keeping command involved, seeing if there's any close air support nearby,
Right.
all these things going on at once, it was one of those high-stress times. Even though I had a lot to do, I'm watching my team function as designed, right? The medic comes running up, starts providing first aid.
Right.
Okay? The commo guy is getting the 2 different radios I need, one for close air, well, all 3 of them, one for close air, one for medevac, and one so I can tell command what's going on.
All unprompted. This is just happening.
They're this is this beautiful, well-oiled machine, right? All the
Right.
gears are meshing. There's no grinding. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And sort of even in the midst of all that, I was very proud of that team. It's like, okay, this is what we're here to do. I mean, very few people in the world could do this, and we're doing it, and we're doing it well.
Wow, impressive. And that certainly sticks out. It's interesting. It sounds very similar to kind of an approach that I heard within the Army as well, but in those tense times, and we've seen this even in my experience in aerospace, sometimes teams that are ill-equipped, let's say, can start trying to solve the problem rather than addressing the threats first, then establishing security, and then working the problem. But it sounds like this was ingrained into everything that you were doing, and it flowed naturally at that state.
At that time, I had a really great team sergeant. That's exactly what was happening.
Right.
We had practiced and practiced. We had rehearsed. We had trained. It was our first tour. So this would have been early 02, probably mid 02 by this point.
Okay.
But we'd already been in tense situations. We've been in Afghanistan for several months at this point. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay, interesting. And we've talked about, of course, your career with Rangers, the time with the Green Berets, that key value. But I wanted to kind of transition into your entrepreneurial life. But I realized when I asked you about who comes to mind as a strong link, we talked about the professional. You had a personal example. I'd love to hear about that too.
So I'll try to talk about this without being emotional.
Okay.
My wife.
Right
What would have been? So my daughter, my youngest daughter, battled leukemia twice.
Wow.
First time was really rough. But thank goodness I was in the process of changing stations. I was en route to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We get there, we explain the situation, we're like, dude, we can't handle leukemia. Go to Duke, and we'll pay the bill. Just, this goes back to being blessed. Duke's one of the preeminent pediatric hematology, oncology hospitals in the world.
Wow.
And they're taking care of my little girl. So she's 2. It takes a while, 2 or 3 years. No, about a year or so. And they don't use the word cured, but they say, hey, if you're in remission for 5 years, you're kind of cured. Well, geez, at 4.5 years, the leukemia comes back with a vengeance.
Oh, wow.
And this time it's a lot tougher. I mean, my little 5-year-old girl looks at me and says, Daddy, am I going to die? So that really...
Yeah, I could just imagine.
So, and then this second time around, they have this at the time was cutting edge technology, this bone marrow transplant.
Okay.
And so she's going through that, and she's up on this, special isolation ward. This whole half of the floor, this one building, is all pediatric hematology, oncology, all the leukemia patients. And you're supposed to be in there for about 30 to 60 days as you go through the chemo and the radiation. Well, she was inside that building for almost a full year.
Wow.
At one point it got so bad she was on life support. A lot of people don't know it, but there's a ventilator and an oscillator. Ventilator breathes for you, oscillator does everything for you. I had one of her doctors tell me later, thank goodness it was later, she said, Jasmine is the first patient we have ever had that left alive off an oscillator.
Wow.
So I didn't know it at the time, but the doctors were all saying, hey, we're done.
Wow.
Thank goodness they didn't tell me.
Right.
So in that year, I would have to go up and visit Jasmine. My wife stayed basically right by Jasmine's side.
Wow.
I mean, my wife basically became a nurse. She knew which medicines did what. She would advocate for Jasmine, saying, hey, look, she's in pain. We need to increase the pain medicine. Or, hey, that stuff makes her nauseous. Is there an alternative, that's equally... So she was just such a great advocate, and she never gave up. I mean, she would, when Jasmine wasn't feeling good, and, this gets kind of gross, but she... the radiation chemotherapy, you have to remind yourself, when you watch a loved one fight with cancer, you have to remind yourself that that's the cure, because it sure looks like the problem, the devastation that those things do to the human body. So she was throwing up so much, she lost most of her teeth just through corrosion and erosion.
Wow.
She became so weak, she had to learn how to walk again. But my wife, every single day, advocating for Jasmine. Okay, you can't walk today, Jasmine? Well, whatever, let's glue macaroni on a page. Wow. You're doing something. You're not going to lay here and feel sorry for yourself.
Right.
So, really, Patty just pulled Jasmine through. It was amazing. Did I say this, that year that I was in the hospital? And you get to know some of the other parents. I held 38 babies.
Wow.
38 babies that didn't make it out alive in a year.
Wow. I can just imagine.
Yeah, it was rough.
I can't wrap my head around, we've talked about the strength it takes to shut your mind off and move through something. But the strength it must take to push through such a hard event for so long while still actively being patient, empathetic, and loving to get someone else through. Yeah. I think that's a whole different level of strength.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
I can completely see that. That's an unbelievable story. And thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. When it comes to, you've gone through quite a lot of key transitions in your life and your career, from artillery to the Rangers, the Special Forces, eventually out of the military. What was the turning point that led you to leave? And how did your core values and beliefs play into realizing that what came next in uniform no longer aligned? This is something I feel like a lot of strong links face.
So I was still, so I told you the story about how I went back to an A team, stayed on the A team for a while.
Right.
I think eventually I had just short of 4 years command time. The average person in their SF career will have between 18 months and 2 years. So I've got a little over 10 years as a warrant officer, about 4 of those command. I told you I went back to the A team. I've gone back now to company staff, and we get a new battalion commander. And he basically gives me the ultimatum. He says, you should have been up at battalion, 5 years ago.
Right.
And you should already be up at group or up at USASOC headquarters. And I'm like, that's not what I want to do. He's like, well, I got it, but, we all have to do things to allow us to, exercise, mentor, span and control, pass along the knowledge you've gained over all the years. I'm like, no.
Right.
I know what I want to do. If you're going to force me to go sit behind it, because here's what my thought was. There's some, other guy with relatively my same experience who would love a desk job.
Right.
Right? He's old, he's broken, he's got marital problems, he needs to stay so we could talk to his divorce. I don't know, I don't care, right?
Right.
I want to stay on the team, I want to stay on the execution arm. And basically, I got to the point, he said, yeah, that's great, but here's the deal. You're coming up to staff. I said, if you make me come to staff, I will retire. If I'm going to sit behind a desk, I'm going to get paid for it. Because this was, the 04 time frame. And what's happening is, to a large degree, the entire military-industrial complex is sort of trying to realign itself to what's going on in these two wars, right?
Right.
So, I'm sure Boeing and Lockheed Martin are still cranking out aircraft, but they're also going after these contracts where, hey, we need 500 former Special Forces guys to be on this contract over here.
Right.
Why were they doing it? Because they were following the money. Right?
Sure.
It's just smart business.
Right.
So there was a lot of money to be made in the early years of the GWAT if you were willing to go back in theater and accept those risks.
As a contract.
As a contractor.
Right.
So think Blackwater, right?
Of course.
Blackwater made billions and billions of dollars
Right.
reselling special operators back to the DoD.
Right. Right.
Which is fine, good, right, proper. I mean, but I didn't go back in country, but I got out and I was working for a very large company. It's like, this is what I wanted to avoid, was being a small number in a big machine. So I went to
Right.
work for a much smaller company where the owners, you understand the mission. These are guys who started a company because they saw a real need in the special operations community, and they got out and they built this thing, and they sold it to the Army, and they sold the training package to go with it. Just motivated guys doing the right thing.
Right.
That felt much better, like a much more natural fit for me. And then even after I did that for a while, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to start my own company. I understand what's going on here. I understand why these things are taking place.
Right.
So myself and a couple of colleagues, we started our own company and started getting after it.
Yeah, and that was going to be the tech transition kind of question.
So that, I think, the much bigger transition was not getting out of service, taking my uniform off, and then going and being a contractor. Because for the first 10 years out of service or so, when I started this company, we were chasing after RFPs. Request for proposals. So the United States government doesn't doesn't build or anything, right?
Right.
A ballpoint pen or a B-2 bomber, they contract it out to industry. So anybody who wants to can respond, say, hey, you as the government have said you need X, Y, and Z. Here's my plan for X, Y, Z, how much it's going to cost. And then they'll evaluate all the proposals and pick the best one.
Right.
That was not nearly as big a transition for me as when I switched from pursuing government contracts to when my current company, my friends and partners, we started the current company that we're with now. Because even as a contractor or a guy who owned a company that was doing government contracting, it was not that big a shift. But now because it was basically still operations. Right? Now I'm shifting from operations to a software company that's sort of focused on, we call it total employment intelligence. But you can think of it as HR software.
Right.
Which is it's much more than that, but that's the box a lot of people put it in.
Right. And what I found really interesting about this is you wanted to soldier and you were looking at a staff option. You could have easily kept doing the contractor work, but you continued on this path. And if you could, give us a quick overview or on that journey, because it started with really analog type recruitment. We're using that term.
Sure.
And then this digital approach, right?
So, sort of the genesis of Opline, my company, is if you think about it, 500 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci submitted a resume to the Duke, right?
Right.
So today, people are still using an analog resume. Trust me, just because you turn it into a PDF, it's not data.
Right.
Okay, someone still has to, the most common way of doing it these days is a Boolean word search. So as a business owner, right, let's use an example. So let's say I want a contract and I got to get 100 people, former, law enforcement professionals to Indonesia to help build the training academy for the Indonesian National Police.
Sure.
Whatever, right? As an example. And you got to get 100 of them, and here's this long list of qualifications and requirements they must have. And if you're not at 95% fill within 90 days, I'm going to start decrementing your contract. So, okay, I got to hurry up. And HR was almost never the solution. In fact, they were more often than not, a block to what was going on. So you would, and I told two friends and they told two friends, remember that? So you would reach out to people you knew that were, in this area, and they would start shaking their Rolodexes, and then finally you'd fill it. Again, as a business owner, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, my number one spend is labor, and it's the only thing I have. It's not digitized, right? Legal, you can pull up everything you need to know, read everything is digitized.
Right.
Your finance is digitized, right? Your compliance is digitized. But your biggest spend, people have been telling you, you can't digitize it. Well, we found out a way to do it. And part of it is we approached it from, a lot of guys in special ops. When you get, you're out there, you're parachuting in, you put 100 pounds on your back, you walk to the target, you hit the target, you get on the chopper, you ride home. Well, after a while, most people, their knees or their backs give out, so a lot of them become targeters, right? They help build the target packages, which they then push to the action elements. So we sort of approached employment from a targeting perspective. Why is it not working? How could we make it work? So what we did was, my partner, a gentleman, Mike Grow, former SEAL, was in the same government industry as I was. This is how I met him, right? So we meet early, I think it's 06. We start working together. And then I didn't jump onto Opline until 2019. So from 06 to 19, I'm doing government services.
Right.
Somewhere in there, I think it was 18 or maybe 17, he walks away from government contracting and he realizes that he has the conceptual idea of what Opline can be.
But neither of you have a tech background at this point.
Well, he
Or
sort of does.
a little bit?
So he was a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
Got out, went to University of Texas in Austin.
Okay.
Gets his MBA, and he's working at Deloitte for I think. If I get it wrong, Mike, I'm sorry. For some of their technical integration, large government, not government, large corporation
Consulting. Right.
Trying to optimize as best they can that people and software.
Right. Okay.
So that's sort of where he started. Then that was, he spent 10 years in government services like I did. And that's where we started kicking around this idea of there's got to be a way. And everyone kept saying it can't be done. You can't digitize it. You can't digitize resumes. So we don't have the patent on the digital resume because it turns out it was already taken, but we do have the patent on the digital profile. So a lot of you hear me going on because I get really passionate about what Opline does. There's nobody in the world doing what we're doing. Literally, A to Z, everyone from Amazon to Zoom uses our software to align talent to their open positions. Our number one selling application aligns veterans to these open positions.
Okay.
But for example, Los Alamos National Laboratory, they use us. And I like to say that they use us for everything from parking lot attendants to particle physicists.
Oh, amazing.
Right, so because we found out early that the veteran employment is just a subset of the global employment. So we have basically a 3D map of the global labor market, and we know where and how to plug each potential candidate into it. So.
And that's, I remember the initial steps you're going through here. This is pre-AI, so you're looking at machine learning.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We again, Mike did all the heavy lifting.
Right.
And Alex too, one of my other partners. So we always joke, five guys from SOCOM walk into a bar and one walks out. Well, you would think some joke, bar fight, blah, blah. No, what walked out was Opline. We start building, I say by hand, but on our laptops, the underlying schema and taxonomy, right? So Palantir, very famous software company, they do basically what is human link association.
Okay.
Bob knows Timmy, Timmy knows Jimmy, Jimmy knows Susie, Susie knows Frank, Frank knows somebody, somebody knows Bob. Okay, so now we can triangulate on who that somebody is because that may be the guy we're chasing after.
Right, okay.
Okay. So we start doing a link association matrix with skills. How is it that all these skills tie into the global labor market? Well, it's pretty easy to figure out because every night our machine ingests millions and millions of jobs. And everybody tells you what they think is valuable.
Right.
This is so valuable, I'm willing to pay for it. If you write, two different software languages, I'm willing to pay X. If you are a full stack developer, I'm willing to pay Y. So we know what the market considers valuable. Now, how do we turn that into, that 3D map so we can then begin plugging people into it? So it's incredibly valuable for the people who are job seekers.
Right.
Don't have to have a resume, right? We have this interaction. It takes about 3 minutes from the time I say go to the time you're aligned to a quality open position.
Right, yeah.
So it starts off with a short, since my number one selling application is the veteran alignment tool, we'll talk about that.
Sure.
But it works for everybody, again. So branch break, MOS, time and service. And then you served, and we're up here in Canada. So, but your interaction will be different than my interaction. Branch rank, MOS, time and service. Every person that has that initial interaction will see a different set of questions, right? 20, 30 questions. And what happens is the machine learning, the AI, says, okay, what industry has asked of these people are these things.
Right.
So now we're building a more accurate skills-based profile, think resume, for these individuals who are looking for jobs.
Right. I find that really interesting because it's just so impressive that in real time, as the job seeker is going through this application form, it's learning more about the member and tailoring the bespoke questions to pull
out. So yeah.
Yeah.
So not only do you, a while back I was presenting to a group of people that was in the process of transitioning out.
Right.
And I told them, I said, hey, look, I'm gonna be the complete 180 of everyone else that you've heard the last 2 weeks, right? They keep telling you, put your phone away and focus. Well, I'm gonna tell all of you, pull your phone out, and in the next 5 minutes, everyone here will align to a quality job.
Oh, that's impressive.
So yeah, and this one guy shouts about 3 minutes into it, I just aligned to a job at Deloitte.
Oh, wow.
He was
okay.
pretty excited.
Yeah.
So, but every time you interact with it, so you can go in there and say, oh, this is an interesting job at Amazon, and Amazon's one of our customers.
Right.
You'll say, well, okay, well, in addition to that, on the left-hand side, there's some filters for you as a candidate.
Right.
Like, let's say, you worked hardware and you've worked software. You don't want to do any more hardware jobs. You, on the left-hand side of your instance, your personal profile, you can turn off, say, don't show me any of the hardware jobs. I just want to see software jobs.
Right.
So you see all the software jobs, and then there's a couple additional questions over there, and you can answer yes, no. You could do it on your phone, yes, no, yes, no. Every single time that you interact with the machine, it completely recalibrates your profile and then re-indexes you across the global labor market.
Right.
So
And correct me if I'm wrong. It's really impressive that the job seeker will get a rapidly curated list of job that suits job fit. But if I remember right, the employers are also getting ideal candidates pushed to them as well.
Right. So what happens is companies are willing to pay huge sums. So HR is hard broke. It is the average, the percentage of people that will go to a corporate website with the intention of applying for a job. 92% of them will quit before they apply for a job because it is just so difficult. Right. You got to rewrite your resume, retailor your resume. Then you get into their thing, and you got to start chopping your resume up and putting in all these different fields. Sometimes it takes an hour. Like I said, within 3 minutes, you're aligning to jobs in Upline.
Right.
But from the company perspective, we back up a little bit. On average, in North America today, it takes about 126 days from the time whoever, the vice president, the program manager, the director of operations, whoever says, I need another, whatever it is you do, black pen company, right? They need to hire somebody to make more black pens. 126 days from the time the idea, the requirement is codified, which means he's got approval to go ahead and look for it, to the time the guy shows up, 126. Well, let's just figure the last month is onboarding and processing. I can't help you with that.
Right.
But I can turn that 100 days into 10 seconds. And that's money. So let me tell you where these companies make big money and why Upline is so easy for us to demonstrate to them the ROI. Right? Because we're a software company. It's high quality software. You have to pay to utilize it. But there's two places. I'll use Boeing. Boeing's one of our customers, relatively new, I think within the last year or so. And they told us, unprompted, that we have taken their cost per hire from just a little over 5,000 to just a little under 1,000.
Wow.
And they have 3,000 open positions on any given day. Okay? So if they make $1,000 profit on those people, whether it's $1,000 a day, $1,000 a month, whatever it is, right? 3,000 open positions on any given day. That means, let's say they make $1,000. I'm just, using numbers here. A month, $30 million a month that they're missing out because they didn't close those positions. We can help them close those positions. So not only can you massively reduce your HR spend, you can radically increase or decrease your cost per hire, and you can radically, because even though there's additional costs with hiring, every time you hire a Brian, there's costs associated, but you've done the math.
Right.
The increased productivity from Brian is going to be increased profitability for you. So you've done that math. Every day you don't fill that position, you're losing money.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty easy sell, because when we demo for these companies, we like to, as much as possible, make it very specific. So we will go in and do a little bit of homework. How many open jobs do you have? Well, depending on the industry you're in, we've been doing this for 5 years now, somewhere between 7 and 20% of your revenue will be dropped right to your bottom line.
Right.
And this is not a one-time deal. This is year after year after year. We can help you. So if you're a multi-billion-dollar company, let's say $100 billion.
That's huge savings.
Because I'm terrible at math. You're a
Sure.
$100 billion company. If I can increase that by 7%, that's $7 billion.
Yeah, that's massive.
That's massive.
I think
right?
it's really impressive. And obviously an opportunity for job seekers, because my own experience getting into aerospace took almost a year to go through the standard resume channels. At the end, it was someone that had to bypass the HR piece because it was so crippled. And the HR members were like, do you know someone? Just let us know, because the standard channels were just so saturated.
Right. I mean, HR is what I call hard broke.
Right.
And so, conversely, I remember I told you that 92% of the people that will go to a website with the intention of applying for a job will quit before they do.
Right.
Conversely, we have a 98% full data conversion rate, which means 98% of the people that touch Opline, and there's a couple different ways to get to Opline, will leave a full, truly digitized electronic profile.
Okay.
And that's what we drop into the inbox
for the
stacked heuristically for our companies. Right. So, all you got to do is turn your computer on, click on Opline, click on resumes for me, and there. And the beauty of it is, those are all within the last 30 days.
Right.
And usually, if you're a large company, you'll see a 0, days in your inbox 0. So that means in the last 24 hours, this very high quality candidate has come in and has expressed interest in your jobs.
Right.
Call them.
Yeah.
Right? So
I can't help but, in the back of my mind, as I'm listening to you with Opline, still think back to the Colt teams, the halo, the precision, the capability. It's really interesting, and I can see that same kind of drive and passion. As we're coming to a close for the episode, there's two things I still want to really pull from you. You've mentioned part of that resilience, part of that consistent high performance. You've had amazing support members in your life. Faith, you've also mentioned as being the cornerstone for your success. And I'd like you to give us more on how that's been
so I really got to credit my mom.
Okay.
She dragged me to church my entire youth. It took about 20 years to sink in.
Okay.
I wasn't a hardened criminal by any means.
Sure.
But I was very mischievous. I like to say I left LA about a half step ahead of the LAPD.
Okay.
So I joined the Army. I took off. And it's funny because even guys I worked with who were, I like to call them radical atheists, when they find out that you're a man of faith, they want to test you.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. Well, really? Oh, you never like a beer? I like a beer. Hand me one. I'll show you. Right?
Sure.
I'm still a man of faith.
Of course. Right.
Oh, you're married. Do you think she's pretty? It's like, I'm not blind or gay.
Right.
I'm just married. I'm faithful.
Right.
But I think nearly every single person I worked with over 20 years, at some point they would come up to me and say, hey, man, tell me, why is it, this is incredible. Everybody else is, I had a very good friend of mine die in an ID explosion. And, there's a lot of sadness at the fire base. And of course, I was deeply saddened too. But, we still have a war to fight, guys. Right. We still, we can honor Bruce. We can uplift each other, okay? What we can't do is cry. Ain't no damn crying, you hear me? We got things to do. So nearly every single person I worked with throughout my career at one point or another would come up to me and say, hey man, what's your secret?
Right.
How do you stay motivated? How do you stay positive? How do you, I remember the sergeant major at the time when Jasmine was so very sick. They were incredibly gracious. My battalion commander told me, hey, your place of duty is with your daughter. But I would go in 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week, maybe just for an hour or two, because I lived sort of in this triangle from where my house was.
Sure.
A pretty good commute from the base to where the hospital was, back to base. So I remember this one sergeant major, they had given me, again, to say, you take care of your family, and then when things are better, she's back home, then you worry about being here every day, all day.
Right.
And so, but I still was trying to do the best I could. So I was still going in, like I said, 2, 3 times a week, sometimes only for an hour or two, but I knew that if I did these 2 things, that, 2 months from now, because if you want to have a helicopter to jump out of in, September, you have to put the form in July, whatever it was. So I knew that I could still do good and be helpful to the unit. And this one sergeant major was like, I just look at you, Brian, and I can't hardly, my heart breaks. It's like, how are you doing it? And so, I had the chance to tell him about my faith, to witness to him. I tell him, this is how it works.
Right.
This is who I am.
And it's sustained that
very much so.
In a way that is non-avoidant too. It's not like you're cutting it out. You're present with it at all times.
And very early on, we talked about some of the guys. They are hyper productive, but there's a lot of avoidance, which leads to problems sometimes. Relationships, alcohol, drugs, personal relationships. Because of that avoidance, and again, this goes back to very deliberate decisions. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Right.
Right? So.
Okay. On that same vein, we've talked about avoidance and the need for support. Now, of course, this is one of the most important parts of your career now, especially with your role with the U.S. Ranger Association and providing that support that they do to serving and members outside. And I'd like to know, what part of your life and identity is that now playing, and why is that so important in terms of what that association is doing?
Yeah, so the Ranger Association is, there are actually several Ranger associations. Like I said, USARA is the oldest and largest. And I've had several people ask me, why am I not in the Ranger Regimental Association? So the Ranger Regiment has an association that is only for people who have served in the Ranger Regiment.
Right, okay.
And I tell them, I personally like the USARA's bigger brotherhood. Right? This bigger tent. And here's why. So I was on, a couple A teams with guys who had the opportunity to go to Ranger School, and we talked about how that helps with promotions, how that helps, your stature. So you'd have guys who were in SF who would go off to Ranger School and then come back and be back on the A team, and great guys, fantastic guys. They just never had the chance to serve in the Ranger Regiment. But they're every bit, my brothers. So that's why I chose to put my time, which is my most valuable resource, we talked about. So, and it's something I don't think we discussed at all. I got a full-time job working in a software company.
Right.
My wife owns a small real estate company.
Okay.
So every time that the Army made us move, we would keep the house. And then when we retired out of the Army, we consolidated it. So I've got these 7 houses, right? They're all paid for.
Okay.
They all cash flow positive.
Wow, amazing.
But you think you spend a lot of time on your house at Home Depot buying stuff. Think if you had to do that for 8 houses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I do, and so I help do a lot of the maintenance and repair on that. So I'm a very busy guy. Time's my most valuable resource. And when it came to a point in my life where I thought, I think I just kind of got my head above water. I have a little bit of time, effort, energy, and money to give back. Where do I want to give back to?
Right.
And just at that time, the design of God, fortune, luck, you call it what you want. I had a buddy post, I think it was on LinkedIn, saying, hey, USARA is looking for some people to help at the national level organization. And we do thousands and thousands of man hours every year, and it's all volunteer.
Right.
So all the money we collect from fundraising, we just raffled off, for example, a firearm.
Right.
All the dues that people pay, it all goes to our two large philanthropic endeavors. One of them is the Ranger Assistance Program, where a ranger has fallen on hard times. We can help out there. And the other one is our scholarship program. Our scholarship program is nearly 10 times larger than the some of our sister ranger organizations.
Right.
We've had some great benefactors, some great donors. So this year I asked the board to increase, we have very strenuous grading process. I think we had 56 applications.
Okay.
40 scholarship applications, 49 of them were fully compliant. A couple guys had left off some paperwork, so you can't be considered.
Sure.
Of those 49, we had 18 that were above the 90th percentile, which is our threshold.
Okay.
All right, so I say, guys, we basically got to double our budget because, that's nearly twice as many as we've had historically.
Right.
And the board, agreed, so, we're impacting those young lives.
Yeah, amazing.
And it's great. And so one of the things that we started doing that I really like, it's new, we've just been doing it the last 2 years, is showing who the legacy ranger is. So if if Jill or Joe applies for scholarship, well, is it their grandfather that was a ranger, their uncle, their dad? Who's the legacy ranger that has tied them to USARA? Right. So we like to put those pictures up together because it's just
that's amazing.
Fostering that camaraderie that we're always talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's really I love the impact of youth who potentially could go and pursue those avenues with the Rangers and so on. So really exciting. I always like to ask the guests at the end of the interviews. So this whole initiative is focused on enabling those members that see themselves and want to drive value as stronglings. We've talked about so much in terms of some very unique approaches in sustaining their performance, avoiding burnout, the importance of that healthy, strong support network and relationships. What would be your advice to someone that wants to succeed and scale and drive that career as a strong link and some of the challenges that they might be facing? What would your piece of advice be for them?
Wow. I would in part go back to what I told my older two kids when they were getting ready to get out and get out of college. So I didn't have the opportunity to go to college. I told you I was a bit of a handful as a young person.
Right.
But I insisted my kids go to college. I paid for them to go to college, because walking out of there with a bunch of student loan debt is not always a great way to start. So I wanted to give them the best opportunity they could to excel. But when they were getting ready to go out, and this goes back to, I guess, what I talked about earlier, what I looked for, I said, be honest and be hardworking. They will notice. Okay?
Right.
It matters.
Okay.
Now, you will run into bad bosses. Yeah, there's just some people out there. We haven't touched on it here, but it's one of the things I always talk about the difference between, command and leadership.
Right.
Because you can be appointed commander and have not a lot of leadership characteristics. You can be in a command position and have management skills. That doesn't mean that you're a good leader.
Right.
So, a lot of, I've seen this a lot, guys are coming out who were commanders and they transition into the civilian world and they don't, without the institutional weight given to them by their rank, they are not quite the leaders that they thought they were.
Right, without that.
So, if somebody who's coming out today, don't be afraid to take a calculated risk. Don't be stupid. I am not a gambler.
Right.
And I bring that up because every year our association has one of our big events is in Vegas.
Okay.
Well, if you're going to have a big convention, you have to have a town that can handle big conventions, right?
Right.
And it just does not strike me as any form of entertainment I'm interested in.
Right.
So calculated risk is one thing. Don't gamble. Don't be stupid. Don't be afraid to take those calculated risks, especially when you're young. Okay? There is lots of time to recover.
Right.
Okay? And this goes back to the other thing, too, is if you wanted to, for example, go into special operations.
Right.
It's hard. But one of the things that I remember, so when I wrestled in high school, I had to cut weight. So Los Angeles is hot. Back in the 70s and 80s, they had a real air pollution problem. So I'd have on a trash bag because I couldn't afford one of those cool guy rubber suits. And I'd go running 5 miles in 100-degree heat trying to drop weight.
Right.
So whether you're running around LA trying to cut weight, or you're in ranger school and you're cold and you're hungry and you're tired and you got to step up, okay? Or you're, over a year into the Q course and you've still got, months to go.
Right.
Long grind. Your body can take a lot more. It's your mind that's telling you to quit, okay? So be mindful. You don't want to lose an eye or a limb.
Of course,
okay?
right.
But you can push through a lot.
Right.
And that's not just physical. You can, hey, is this a scary situation where I might be unemployed for a while? If it's the right thing, don't let fear drive you.
Okay, I love those attributes. If I were to now flip this around, organizational leaders, military, outside, public, private sector, they see the value in those members, those critical enablers, those strong links. What's your best advice from your military experience, special forces, entrepreneurial side, to speak to those organizational leaders, what they can do to identify, sustain, or scale the strong links within those organizations?
So a lot, I would even say most senior leaderships are probably already doing this.
Okay.
You don't fail upwards. I mean, I know it's an old cliche, but the reality is some of your other guests, right? I saw the guest list, very impressive people. They got where they are because they're good at what they do. And part of that is empowering your teams, right? If you've got a problem and you got to put a team together to find a solution, you're already doing that mentorship. You're already doing that sponsorship, right? And these leaders, one of the things that I do as a leader, I learned very early on. So we'll go all the way back to being in Range Battalion. Don't have the guys spend a lot of time getting ready for an inspection, and then don't inspect. Right? They put all that time and go through there. Tell them, hey, you did a good job. As silly as it sounds, they got ready for it. They worked hard at it. Recognize the effort, recognize the hard work. The same thing that, the guys at Boeing do. Hey, I put together a team to figure out and solve that problem. I'm going to recognize him. And I promise you that the vast majority of senior leaders recognize and understand, and you can share the glory. Right? You absolutely can. In fact, you look better when you tell them, hey, this was Bob's idea, Bob ran the team, and Bob came up with a solution. And next time we have an opening, I think we need to make sure Bob's filling it.
Okay, amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that goes back to, well, geez, what do you think Bob's going to do for you now?
Exactly. The investment.
Because this goes back to what I talked about earlier, honesty. Can I trust you to do the job when I'm not looking? Well, now Bob's motivated. He worked hard. He was recognized. Hopefully he will, when he fills your position and he has to appoint a team to find things, he will find the best people. You will come up with the best solution in the shortest amount of time because Bob was shown, competent leadership.
I really like the tie from the recognition piece, which a few leaders have shared that as well as being critical. But it's interesting as recognition to reinforce honesty and those strong character traits that you want to sustain within an organization?
I always come back to character because, like I said, competency can be learned.
Right.
Okay? I need to have guys of good character so that I can trust them.
Right. Last question I always ask. Top, let's say, 2 books that you'd love to, and you already know my affinity with the LERP teams, Recondos, that's already a thing.
Yeah.
But what would you recommend?
Wow. I should have put some thought into this.
Right.
I would say, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Give me a second. So,
Okay.
I was in Afghanistan. I was interfacing on a nearly daily basis with the governor of the Konar province, and his son came
Okay.
from America. He was an expat, so we came, got to know the son. The son later went to Harvard and wrote a book.
Okay.
Very interesting perspective. So a guy who grew up in America comes to Afghanistan in the early parts of the war where there's still a lot of hope. You know, they can maybe become a functioning democracy. There's still a lot of hope, blah, blah, blah. Through the disillusionment, then goes back and becomes a student at Harvard.
Wow.
Dang, I'll remember the name of it. And the other one is, I mentioned it earlier, Wesley's book, The Hardest Place.
The Hardest Place, right.
Because he did a lot of, fantastic research.
Okay.
I mean, right down to, the names and the places, and it was a really bad neighborhood to be in the early years.
Right.
The enemy was dug in deep. There was really no road to some of the places in the Pesh Valley. It was tough.
Okay. Great recommendations, and I'm really excited to look at those too. Brian, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. This has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you, to really pull on your earned experience and service. And
Well, it's been my pleasure. I surely appreciate it. I mean, it's been great.
fantastic. So I look forward to many more interactions ahead, and certainly sharing this with our viewers. So thanks again.
Sure. Again, my privilege. I appreciate it.
Fantastic.
It's been great.